Welcome back to the channel. My name is Emory. This channel is dedicated to helping you get better at backpacking. So if you're new here, that's what it's all about. Consider sticking around, subscribing, or just checking back on the channel for new videos. Today I just want to cover why I stopped wearing fleece when I'm backpacking or hiking. I feel a lot better having moved on from it, and I'm going to tell you what I moved to. But before I do, anything that I mentioned in this video, including the backpacking course, a podcast, and the website, are linked down below in the description of the video, so be sure to check those out for anything that I've mentioned. Okay, let's talk about fleece and what I've moved on to. Psst, it's Merino Wool. Here's my background with fleece. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and for some reason, everyone was wearing fleece. So from the time I was a little one to the time a few years ago, really, I wore fleece, and I always struggled with regulating my body temperature. And if you don't know if you're having trouble regulating your body temperature, it looks a little something like this. You hike, you heat up really quickly, you stop, you strip a layer off, you get cold, and then you keep hiking, and then you're way too cold because you're sweaty, so you stop again shortly thereafter, and you put your fleece back on, and then you do this cycle a number of times, and at the end of the day, you're really, really tired and really uncomfortable, but unless you know any different, that's just how it is. Well, that's what my story was like. I always struggled with managing and regulating my body temperature. I was always sweating too much. I was never getting really warm. And I had a fleece hat, gloves, and essentially a mid layer. Not so much, I don't think I wore fleece base layers, but essentially it was a mid layer, hats, and gloves. At some point, and I don't know why, but I switched over to merino wool. I found merino wool. And if you don't know what merino wool is, it's just a variation of wool. It's really nice. It's kind of a replacement for, or it is a replacement for fleece. Anything fleece can do, I think merino does better. But once I switched over to merino, I found my comfort level in the backcountry way better. I was no longer struggling to maintain a constant temperature. My body was able to regulate itself better, whether it was hot or cold. All around, my comfort was improved from head to toe, and I've since never looked back. And any time that I do try to implement fleece into my hiking or backpacking setup, I'm just uncomfortable. So for me, fleece doesn't work. I have since switched to merino wool. So I would like to tell you a little bit about what kind of merino wool I look for and why. Okay, so like I said, I switched over to merino wool for literally everything. Socks, gloves, hat, neck gaiter, specifically a mid-weight or a mid-layer. They even make merino wool insulation, which I haven't tried yet, but it sounds pretty cool. The thing that I usually focus on is like a base layer, like a t-shirt or a mid layer. And all merino wool is not created equal. There are lots of variations of it, not so much in the wool area, but like the composition of it. So sometimes you'll see a 100% merino, and sometimes you'll see maybe 40% merino, 60% something else, or some sort of percentage of this versus that. Where that's important is 100% merino would be awesome, but for me, I'm not a huge fan unless it's a heavier weight because it doesn't retain its shape very well. I have a couple of 100% merino articles of clothing, and they just always stretch out for me. So I like to have some sort of a blend. I try to stick with like 80% merino. The lowest I'll go is 65%, and the reason for that is anything lower than that, you might as well just get a synthetic shirt. It's really, really important to learn to read the label. I've seen merino marketed shirts that I look on there and it's only 25% merino. I'm like, wow, this is a great deal on a shirt. And then I look and it's 25%. I'm like, that's not even a merino shirt. It's a polyester shirt with a little bit of merino. Long story short, they come in a lot of different blends. And where the blends come in really, really important is if you want a light t-shirt, and it's 100% merino, not gonna last you very long. It might be really comfortable, but it's gonna get holes, the seams are gonna tear. When you go really light, like 125 or less, 125 weight merino, you're gonna wanna have a blend to like keep the structure, keep the durability, because they weave in like a polyester or whatever else they weave in there. It helps keep the durability and the structure of the shirt really well. But as you go up in weight, that's when you can kind of afford to get more like 100% merino. So keep that in mind. You want to look at the blending of it. Again, I like to stick around 80% because Another thing to keep in mind as you go down in merino percentage, so if you go from 100% to 50%, let's say, you're now missing out on 50% of the purpose of merino wool, which is antimicrobial. Like, it doesn't stink as much as a synthetic will. Even after a week-long backpacking trip, it just won't stink if you air it out at night. Because it has properties of wool, it won't perform like wool as much as like 100% will. So if you go down to 50%, say, blend, then you're losing out on a lot of the primary reasons of choosing merino wool. Again, you might as well just go with the synthetic. So my favorite overall weight of a mid layer is around 200 to 250 with a 80% blend or so, if I can find it, to just give you a starting point. Since I've started doing this and implementing this system with gloves and hats and base layer t-shirt and even leggings. I mean, I have merino leggings literally from top to bottom. Since I've done that, my comfort in the field has been amazing. Anytime I switch back to a synthetic, my body really doesn't like it. Caveat here, everyone's body is going to be different. Your body might really respond well to fleece and synthetic materials. Mine doesn't. For some reason, I just perform better with merino wool. And I apply it to day hikes, hunts, backpacking trips, all of the above. And I have never wanted to wear anything other than merino wool. So that's why I switched away from fleece. If you are struggling to regulate your body temperature, as I mentioned previously, pulling on layers, pulling them off, getting overheated, being way too sweaty, if you're having trouble, I would highly encourage you to try replacing your mid-weight or your mid-layer or whatever it is that you have in fleece or synthetic. Try getting the merino version of that to see if your body responds better to it. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, let me know in the comments. If you have any questions or suggestions or concerns you want to tell me about, leave them in the comments below. If you're new to backpacking, be sure to check out the backpacking course, the podcast, and the website, all of which are linked down below in the video description. If you're headed out on an adventure anytime soon, be safe, make great decisions, and we'll see you next time.